For somebody who's not aware of what exactly we are doing, we'll just brief you about it. What we are talking is, if you've got the same coffee and you've got the same temperature, same ratio, all these things being same, what if you brew it in this and what if you brew it in this? What is the difference? That is what we want to talk about. Before you start watching this video, I would really want you to first comment exactly which one would you prefer and which one would you not prefer, and the reasons for it, even before the video begins. So we'll start first talking about Chemex. Now Chemex was, as everybody must be knowing, was designed by a German chemist. This also featured in one of the most useful things during a war time. Now what does a Chemex do? Chemex is a way of making coffee. It is a technique of poro. It is a part of a poro, I would say, in which basically you've got this beautiful looking equipment with a wooden collar. Wooden collar is technically to hold this properly, and you've got this thing as a pourer, but also it does something else as well. I still don't know why this knob is, so I would love to know from you guys why this is there. Anyway, so Chemex is something which is has got its own pros and cons. Let's start with the prawns. Speaking of now V60, V60 would have been a greater hit if the angle, so V60 is basically the 60-degree angle over here, but in my opinion, honestly, it would have been a bigger hit if the angle would have been increased by at least 9 degrees. So it would have been called V69. Okay. So now that we heard the logic of 9 degrees, let's come back to the reality. This is manufactured by the Hario company. It is a very simple, beautiful equipment again. Got a 60-degree angle to it. You'll see these ridges as well. This is also a coffee maker in which a paper filter goes and you start pouring water on top and you get a good cup of coffee. This is what a pour over V60 looks like. So let's get to the comparative thing. For somebody who's not aware of what exactly we are doing, we'll just brief you about it. What we are talking is, if you've got the same coffee and you've got the same temperature, same ratio, all these things being same, what if you brew it in this and what if you brew it in this? What is the difference? That is what we want to talk about. Let's start with the Chemex. Let's start with the cons, I would say. One, for me, I find the angle of the paper filter once you dump it in to be very steep, and how I imagine is that once it's too steep, there's going to be a lot of pressure at the bottom of the coffee once you start pouring water on top, and invariably there will be some bypass or over extraction or uneven extraction happening. Second part is that as compared to the V60, this is not economically beneficial or economically viable, I would say, because the paper filter one is expensive and also the paper filter is super big. I think 2.5 times is what we calculated. It is 2.5 times or the V60 paper filter. The other point that I found difficult while brewing a Chemex is that at times I see a lot of bypass happening and it does not give me an opportunity to brew the cup consistently. Like I would say I would have less confidence when somebody says, can you make a Chemex the same way over a period of time, as compared to when somebody asks me like, would you make a V60 consistently the same way throughout the time? So I would put my money on a V60 as compared to the Chemex. Other things being like, I cannot take this and travel around. It is made of glass, beautiful looking glass, but it's not easy to be carried around. So if you're thinking of going for camping or anywhere, this is not going to be your buddy. This is going to be something that you would definitely want to go for. Then comes the part of the cleaning. Cleaning is also kind of a problematic stuff in this, because you can't really put your hand inside, of course, but you have to have those chemicals and solutions which basically you put it inside and then you throw it. And again, it's not something which is very difficult, but I'm just comparing between these two. This one is much easier to clean. This one is not really that easy to be cleaned. Now this is a paper filter of Chemex. Now imagine the amount of paper that is being used, and it's a huge quality, good quality paper. And once you fold this, what happens technically is that once you fold this, you will see one thing happening. On one side you've got one paper, on the other side you've got 3 paper filters, right? Can you see that? Visible? So you got 3 layers over here and just 1 layer over here. Now what is going to happen is, once you dump it in, like ensure that the 3 side layer is over here on the side of the pourer. But what happens is, what I've observed, one thing is, once I have dumped the coffee and I've started pouring coffee inside, this is going to take lesser time to extract coffee or drip the coffee down whereas this is going to take more time, right? Now, that is exactly where uneven extraction starts. Your extraction has started over here, say at 30th second. Here is going to take a little longer because it's getting filtered 3 times. And the pressure is basically building up, and I feel it is under extracted at a lot of levels. Another important point over here is, if you don't put up your Chemex in a way where your 3-sided paper is not from the place where you're going to pour out the coffee, what is going to happen is, so basically if a single side paper is over here and if this thing gets stuck over here, alright, while making the coffee, and there is no way for the air to go outside, what is going to happen is the pressure below is going to be more than the pressure above, which basically means it's going to stall your brew. You don't want that to happen, so ensure that you have kept the 3-sided fold on the place from where the pouring of coffee is going to happen. Even then, at times you got to be a little bit careful. The paper does get stuck over here, so that is one of the problems that happens in this. So you must have also figured out one thing, that Chemex is not as forgiving as a V-60 pour-over. Forgiving in terms of having consistent brew, especially during the service time. If you're making it for yourself, there are high chances you can get the same brew, but during the service, when you've got other orders, other things going around, it becomes very difficult to have the same coffee consistently throughout. There are a little bit more parameters to work on as compared to the V-60. So we've been super harsh on the Chemex, but we love it, alright? It is a beautiful design. The coffee that comes out of the Chemex, you're gonna really love that a lot. Despite having so many negatives, why does this thing run so much? The reason is that the coffee that you get out of this is beautiful. So if I want to make a coffee and I really want to enjoy it in my own time, I would definitely go for a Chemex as compared to the V-60. If I want to really enjoy the crispiness, clarity and the sweetness of the coffee, I would go for the Chemex, that's certain. One of the few negatives of this one would be that as compared to the Chemex is that this will give you a little lesser fruitier note or lesser clarity as compared to the Chemex. Does not mean by any means that this will give you a bad cup of coffee. If you just want to compare it with Chemex, there will be a little bit more crispiness in the note in Chemex as compared to the V-60. So even though these two have got their own pros and cons, for a service like a cafe service, I think a V-60 would be something that would make your life much easier as compared to the Chemex. But Chemex definitely, with the design, with the kind of coffee that it gives you, will give you more attention in a bar, in a cafe service. So if you keep this as against this, there are going to be more questions coming for this, and there will be more intrigued questions coming about this rather than this one.